Objectives come first, and they must tie directly to prioritized risks with measurable outcomes rather than generic coverage claims. If account takeover is a top risk this quarter, then the objective is to demonstrate that session management, authentication, and anomaly detection controls reduce attack success rates to a defined residual level with evidence. If ransomware containment is the concern, the objective is to prove that segmentation and recovery controls limit blast radius and recovery time to thresholds the business accepts. Each objective should name the scenario, the target metric, and the evidence type that will demonstrate success or failure. When objectives read like this, the test plan becomes a map of decisions rather than a catalog of tools. Methods should be selected because they fit the asset and the risk profile, not because they are fashionable. Static Application Security Testing, SAST, is well suited to catching code-level issues before runtime and shines where teams control the source. Dynamic Application Security Testing, DAST, exercises the running service and exposes logic and configuration flaws that only appear under real requests. Software Composition Analysis, SCA, inventories components and flags known vulnerabilities in dependencies where exploit kits evolve faster than release cycles. Penetration testing brings an adversarial lens to scoped targets. And red teaming stretches across people, process, and technology to stress the whole defense in-depth model. Picking the right mix means aligning method to threat, asset criticality, and the speed at which the system changes. Scope is the guardrail that keeps tests relevant and safe. Write it with explicit inbounds and out-of-bounds targets, authenticated and unauthenticated paths, and the must-test flows that map to your top risks. If lateral movement is a concern, include segmentation validation that attempts to cross zone boundaries with realistic credentials and device postures. If data privacy is central, include flows that touch collection, storage, indexing, and deletion behaviors so retention and masking controls are exercised end-to-end. Name the environments, the entry points, and the test user roles so the team does not guess. A scope that is concrete allows creativity inside it and accountability after it. Independence matters because bias hides defects. Ensure conflict separation between operators who run the systems, developers who build them, and testers who evaluate them. Internal security engineers can test, but their incentives and friendships should not color severity or closure. Peer review and sign-off lines should cross team boundaries. For high-stakes systems, bring in third parties at defined intervals to refresh perspective and calibrate internal results. Independence does not mean hostility. It means the authority to write down uncomfortable truths and a process that protects that authority. When separation is real, findings carry more weight and remediation lands faster. Rules of engagement keep tests fast, fair, and safe. Draft them to cover time windows when load and availability can absorb stress, safety controls that prevent data loss or corruption, and evidence handling protocols that preserve confidentiality. Specify communication channels for start, pause, and stop signals, and define the escalation path if a live incident is suspected during testing. Clarify what data can be created, copied, or exfiltrated as proof, and how it will be stored and destroyed afterward. The rules should be short enough to read and strict enough to prevent surprises, because speed and trust rely on clear boundaries everyone accepts. Good tests use safe inputs and pre-cleared environments. Prepare sanitized test data that mirrors real formats and edge cases without exposing live personal or confidential information. Or use safe sandboxes where synthetic identities and isolated integrations make risk negligible. Secure written approvals before execution from system owners, data protection leaders where required, and any partner teams whose services will be touched. If production must be tested to prove segmentation, rate limiting, or fraud controls under true load, be explicit about volumes, rollback plans, and monitoring thresholds that will halt activity if pressure climbs too high. Preparation is not ceremony. It is insurance against collateral damage. Attack chains should be calibrated from actual threat models, not improvisation. Use your system-specific models and align techniques to the MITRE Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge Framework, ATT_CK, so the plan covers behaviors that matter here: credential stuffing, token theft, injection, lateral movement, data staging, and exfiltration routes that mirror your architecture. Chain techniques in the order a real adversary would try them, and define success criteria for each link, such as privilege obtained or boundary crossed. This approach produces findings that speak to likelihood and impact in recognizable terms. It also gives defenders structured practice in detection and response tied to the same techniques. Production protections are non-negotiable when live systems are touched. Integrate change controls so test traffic, configuration tweaks, and temporary access are approved, logged, and reversible. Schedule work inside maintenance windows or low demand periods, and post notices where they will be read by responders and operators. Document rollback steps for each planned change, test the rollback in a safe environment, and assign a named owner to execute it if thresholds are breached. When these controls exist, leaders approve more ambitious testing because they can see the safety net, and testers execute more confidently because the exits are clearly marked. Findings must be reproducible, or they will become tails instead of tickets. Capture commands, payloads, timestamps, screenshots, and relevant logs for every issue, with enough detail that another tester can follow the same path and observe the same outcome. Record environment identifiers and user roles to remove doubt about context. Tie each artifact to a unique finding identifier and store it where system owners and auditors can access it under appropriate controls. Reproducibility converts debate into diagnosis, and diagnosis into a fix that can be verified without creative interpretation. It also shortens meetings, which is a practical victory everyone will notice. Ratings should combine business impact, exploitability, and affected obligations, so prioritization reflects reality rather than theatrics. Business impact anchors the loss side, revenue at risk, downtime windows, privacy exposure, safety implications, or contractual penalties. Exploitability summarizes how easily and reliably the issue can be triggered by an adversary with plausible resources. Affected obligations highlight legal or regulatory duties that elevate urgency beyond pure economics. With these three dimensions visible, triage decisions become more consistent and defensible, and engineers understand why one fix jumps the queue while another waits. Sorting on only one dimension leads to surprises later. A balanced score prevents that. Retesting is where confidence is earned. Plan retests when the fix is ready, with clear acceptance criteria derived from the original finding and the control objective it supports. Use the same or more stringent conditions to verify that the behavior cannot be reproduced and that no related regression was introduced. Record the verification steps, the evidence observed, and the date and tester identity. Then close the issue only when these artifacts are in place. If the fix is partial, document the residual risk and the follow-on plan, including any temporary compensating controls and their expiration. Closure without verification is not closure. It is wishful thinking. Programs improve when they measure themselves with useful numbers and follow the trends. Track coverage in terms that matter. Systems tested against top risks, critical flows exercised, and AT&CK techniques attempted versus planned. Track defect density normalized by asset size or change volume to understand where quality is improving and where it slips. Track time to fix by severity to detect bottlenecks in decision, design, or deployment. Then use the trends to refine scope, cadence, and methods. Invest more where signal is strong, pivot where signal is weak, and retire work that no longer moves decisions. Metrics are not a scoreboard to admire, they are a steering wheel to use. In conclusion, write a quarterly test charter that turns strategy into execution without drama. Name the owners who will plan and approve, the systems and flows that will be tested, the methods matched to risks, and the scheduled windows that respect operations. Include independence expectations, rules of engagement, data handling posture, and the evidence requirements that will make findings reproducible and closures verifiable. Tie objectives and ratings to the risk register so outcomes move residual risk in visible ways. When the charter is real and on the calendar, testing becomes proof that controls work where it counts, and that is the value everyone is asking for. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.